call to order the meeting, special meeting of the Joshua Basin Water District Board of Directors on Thursday, May 18th at 6:30 p.m. Please rise and join Mike in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you for your honor. Please join me in pledge of our great flag. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Determination of the quorum.
Madam President, 4 directors are present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Move that we approve the agenda.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Since no one's opposed, the agenda stands approved. Public comment. Members of the public may address the board at this time with regard to matters within the board's jurisdiction that are not listed on the agenda. State law prohibits the board of directors from discussing or taking action on items not included on the agenda. Members of the public will have the opportunity for public comment on any item listed on the agenda when it is addressed on the agenda. Please limit comments to 3 minutes or less. So, do we have any public comment? I should have asked first because I hate reading that. Gil,
Yes, ma'am.
you're going to redo my public comment thing.
I've done it,
Okay, good.
and I haven't shared it with you yet, but I'm going to provide you with 2 or 3 options. They're all good.
All right, I like it all good. I'm going to hesitate for just a moment. Do you have a public comment, Al? We just went by it. Okay. Item number 6, the consent calendar. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine in nature and will be adopted in total by one action of the Board of Directors unless any board member or any individual or organization interested in one or more consent calendar items wishes to be heard. And the consent calendar is the draft minutes of the May 3rd, 2017 regular meeting of the Board of Directors. Do I have a motion?
I move that we accept the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
No one's opposed, so that stands. Item number 7, resolution number 17-976, supporting the Association of California Water Agencies policy statement on Bay Delta flow requirements. Mr. Sauer.
So our recommendation is that the board adopt this resolution 17976, supporting the Association of California Water Agencies and their statement on the Bay Delta flow requirements. The resolution is in your packet. We were contacted by Aqua, as were all of the Aqua district members, in support of this resolution, which basically says that the current State Water Resource Control Board's decisions would be impaired if the State Water Board staff proposal to base new water quality objectives on a percentage of unimpaired flow would have impacts well beyond the impacts on the fish. And they're suggesting that something called a functional flow would better achieve the comprehensive collaborative approaches for the co-equal management for the environment and for the economy, agriculture, and recreation. The co-equal goals of improving water supply reliability for California and protecting, restoring, and enhancing the Delta ecosystem would be better served by their proposal. And a successful collaborative approach requires comprehensive solutions for both water supply and ecosystem management. So basically, as you know, Aqua is a statewide organization that is respected by the governor, by the legislature, and by the many water agencies that are members. And they've asked for our support in supporting their resolution to work collaboratively with the state and improve the overall planning for not only the environment and the fish, but recreational, urban, and agricultural interests in the state.
Thank you.
So many hundreds of districts have already approved this. High Desert approved it last night at a special board meeting, I believe. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you. Yes, actually, Tim Quinn, who's the executive director of Aqua, talked about this at length at one of the lunches, and it's really important for equal access to water throughout the state, so I'm very pleased that we're doing this. Any questions we'll start with the public. Any questions from the public? Seeing none, any questions from the board?
I have real mixed feelings about this. I was at Mojave when they discussed it. A couple months earlier, I read the Aqua newsletter where they talked about it. And it's interesting because there seems to be at odds with the State Water Board and the governor. And I'm just not sure where all of this originated. I think some of it is in opposition to the last administration's Waters of the USA, which has the poster child of the farmer's mud puddle that he says is being overregulated. And I think that the agriculture interests made a real hard play for this. Jerry Brown is very pragmatic. He is not going to see his state agricultural interests be unhappy, and he doesn't want to see, the economics of the state disrupted. But I have very mixed feelings about this. I know Aqua's supporting it, and I don't have any reason to abstain from it because I don't have a conflict of interest with it, right, Gil?
That's right.
There'd be really no reason to abstain, so it's either a yay or a nay on it.
You still have the option to abstain regardless, without a stated reason.
And I'd like to point out that in the packet that we got with this, it mentions that this actually supports the governor's plan.
Oh, yes,
Whereas the
yes.
state board staff's recommendations do not.
Yeah, and
So
that's-
this goes
yeah.
along with what the governor is requesting.
And that's what I thought was interesting, because he's at odds with his own State Water Resources Board. And I was happy at the beginning of the year to see actually Aqua take a firm stand against them. Yes, they are overreaching, there's no doubt about it. And so this is a very interesting dynamic is taking place in the state of California. And that's my comment on this.
Okay. Any other comments from the board?
I just think as this thing evolves, it's an attempt to compromise. I don't know that there is any real right answer with this. That's just the way I look at it.
Yeah. Whiskey's for drinking and water's for fighting. Yep. Do you have any comment?
My feelings are similar to Rebecca's. I do, the way this is written, I feel that it's encouraging collaboration, which is a good thing. I'm not terribly versed in the unimpaired flow decision, so that would be helpful to me to have greater knowledge of that. And I don't know if Kurt, you can briefly summarize that or not, but
It's much more complex than I spent time understanding.
right. And I'm in the same boat. Although I do feel I appreciate the governor's pragmatism. I am concerned that we balance the need for irrigation and for farmers and for urban areas with protecting the resources of the Delta. I don't think this is, going directly against that position, or I would not be able to support it. Yeah, I have some ambivalence, but I think I'm prepared to vote on it tonight. So.
Okay. With that, do I have a motion?
I would move that we recommend to the board to adopt resolution number 17976, supporting the Association of California Water Agencies policy statement on Bay Delta flow requirements.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. We'll go roll call. Start with you, Director Hunt.
Yay.
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay. 3, what is that? 3, well, who knows? Okay, we're going to move on to item number 8, which is why most of you are here. We are going to be filling the board vacancy tonight, and we have a list of questions. The way we will do this is we're requesting the candidates to go out in there in the hall and wait until it's your turn so that you come in and the questions are fresh for you. your choice. You don't have to do that. This is a public meeting. You may stay if you wish. The questions will be the same for each candidate. We're going to go round robin. I will start with the questions, and then it will go to Bob, and then Rebecca, and then Gary, and then we'll just keep going until we've asked all the questions. So if you are willing to step out, this will be the time to do that, and thank you very much. And if you're not, then you don't have to.
It's nice. I suspected otherwise.
I don't know, do we have an order in which we want to call them back in?
Alphabetically?
I think they are in your packet alphabetically.
Yeah, so Buck Buckley would be first.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to approach
Okay,
it.
so we'll take Buck back because we're going to go with alphabetical. And then once you've answered the questions, you can stay in the room for the meeting.
Stand there.
Okay, the introduction. The introduction, we're impressed with the number of people who have applied to fill this board vacancy. Our thanks to each of you. In making this selection, we on the board will be putting our personal feelings aside and making our decision with the best interest of the district at heart. It is our goal to select the person who has the most to offer Joshua Basin Water District. So I will start with question number 1. Please tell us a little about your background, how long you've lived in Joshua Tree, and why you're interested in serving on the board.
Buck Buckley. I'm Joshua Tree 9 years now. Always been very interested in water. I'm a licensed plumber, general contractor, and recently just an electrician. I think water is kind of like the new gold. It's very valuable. It's amazing that the state spends about 30% of its electric bill moving water around. I have trouble with how we do things. I mean, you just voted on an initiative I don't think anybody really understands, and it has to do with saltwater infiltration in the Bay Area and building a huge pipeline to bypass that. That's what they want to do, and they've wanted to do for years. I'm quite knowledgeable on a lot of things that are going on. I do a lot of studies and feel I could help the district sort a few things out and move us into directions and find feasible ways to budget for things we need to do. So that's why I'm running.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
My question is, what is your understanding of board protocol? Describe your understanding of what your role on the board would be.
I've been to enough meetings that I understand I'm not fond of protocol, but I understand it very well. I served in many agencies through, well, for instance, contractors board. I was one of the foremen in choosing and working on new legislation and stopping contractors from contracting without license. I work with the county right now, which is a large ship, and it's a very interesting process. But I find that if you just hang in there and you work with people, things begin to change. I'm responsible for gray water systems being approved by the county on a simple basis that work on a large scale to treat water on property and actually do recharge. And the county's very interested in moving that forward. I'm not fond of having to make a decision to make a decision to make a decision, but I can live within those guidelines. And I can get myself to a meeting when I know I have to.
Thank you.
Hey there, Buck.
Hi.
Hi.
Rebecca.
Welcome, and thank you so much for applying. Thank you for running in the last election. And you can abstain. There's something that you don't understand or fully, ambivalent, whatever, you can always abstain. My question is, how would you describe your leadership style in dealing with other board members, the management, and the public?
I worked for Firestone Tire and Rubber. I was the youngest store manager they ever had. I started in my first store when I was 19. I made profit real fast. They noticed and they started putting me into losing stores. I turned them around. I had to work with 40-year-old mechanics, and ordering a 40-year round when you're 19 was pretty interesting. I found it was easier to gain people's trust and interest and then work forward from that, and that's kind of how I work with people for the most part. If I find I don't feel I'm making any progress, I will step down, and I did that on the CAC when I was here. I felt like I couldn't do anything and I really wanted to vote, which is why I'm running for the board now. I think in order to make change, you have to have that vote, and I didn't feel I could make change from that position. So that's where I'm at now.
Thank you.
But good evening, and thank you
Gary?
very much for your interest in applying for appointment to the board. We very much appreciate the number of folks that have turned out to apply for this position, including yourself. So this question is about relevant knowledge of the Joshua Basin Water District, and it is the board's duty to focus on the future of this organization, as you know. And what would you consider to be the district's highest priorities, and how do you think we could address them?
Well, your highest priority is your mission statement to provide clean water into the future. I mean, that's almost every water district's position, and their mission statement has something like that in it. And that's what I'm all about. I mean, I catch rainwater, I do recharge, I do gray water systems. I think you in writing grants, which you ran on, you're good at, that's one thing we could start doing, is to get people to have grants available to them to do these systems, and maybe we don't need to buy as much water from Northern California. We could actually start recharging. It's called pinpoint recharge or teacup recharge. I'm sure you're aware of what that is. You do it on each property, collecting rainwater, and you do it in areas where you have percolation and large alluvial fans. And USGS has already identified most of those areas in our valley. We're so dry and hard packed, we can't get recharge. It only comes into the washes and our percolation ponds. And when you do these biofields, your gray water can actually be used and treated by using plants to clean it. And when it rains, you fill up the biofield and you overflow it into your aquifer. And it just drips down slowly, just like it does anywhere else, because you've penetrated that first 15, 20 feet and started a pinpoint recharge point in the basin. So those are the kinds of things we can do. I mean, offset your electric bill by solar, we've talked about that, but everybody doesn't think it's worthwhile. But it's time to start budgeting for it, because your electric bill is growing bigger and bigger and bigger really fast. And you can put solar panels over the building, create shade, and knock your heating and air conditioning bills down if you do it right. Those are the kinds of things I'm into, and those are the things I'd like to share with you all and budget for and work towards to create a more efficient district and start putting water back that we don't have to pay for. It falls out of the sky for free, so why do we borrow it from Northern California and pay high prices for it? So that's kind of where I'm at and the things I'm looking forward to working with everyone on.
Thank you.
Okay, question number 5, professional experience. Briefly describe any professional experience you have had which would help you fulfill your duties as a board member.
I'm a licensed general contractor, B, C36, which is a plumbing contractor, and a C10. I have done everything from large TI work, skyscrapers in Huntington Beach, homes, TI work. I've been through the gauntlet. I enjoy water issues and power issues more than anything these days. That's what I really spend my time focusing on, because I think that's the biggest area for improvement for our planet, because we waste a lot of energy in these areas. And we're short of water, obviously. And we're still overdrafting aquifers rather than recharging them. And we need to catch up. I mean, banking water in one place in a huge water agency is like putting your money into the stock firms and putting it in one place. Diversifying is much better. We should be putting water in everybody's aquifers and filling them back up and banking them there, because an earthquake could open up a big crack somewhere and suck all your water away in one point if you bank it in one place. So things need to be thought of and dealt with. And what I'm saying isn't new. It's, you know, it's studied. USGS people know this happens. They had an earthquake in Mexico City that rocked the tide pools in Death Valley for about 2 hours. So everything is interconnected, and the pressures in the Earth's crust are amazing and huge. And we're actually on a gigantic fault right here, and I've talked to Luke Sabala, and he says we're due. So infrastructure is at risk here, hugely. And that's something else that we need to start working on, is figuring out ways to protect that. So, does that answer your question?
Thank you. Thank you.
Number 6, flexible schedule. Appointment to the board requires that the appointee be available for regular and special board meetings as well as committee assignments, which may entail day and evening hours as needed. Are there any reasons why, or are there any reasons that would preclude you from this availability or flexibility?
I'm pretty much self-employed, and I am winding down my construction side in lieu of vacation rentals, which are a little easier to play with. So my hours are opening up quite well in that respect. I think I'd be very flexible at this point.
Great. Thank you.
I've got a lot of questions to ask you, but I got to stick to the script.
Yes.
A lot of things that were very interesting. Conflict of interest. Do you think there's any issues here, pertinent issues to serving on the water district that the public might construe as a conflict of interest?
I don't think so, because I don't even want a contract to do solar. I want people to do it, but I don't want to do it anymore. I don't like being on roofs. I don't like being in the sun and the wind, and I'm getting older, and it's dangerous, and your worker comp is through the roof, which I'm sure you guys know. So I don't think there's a conflict of interest. At the same time, I think my licenses could be used here to look at contracts and negotiate savings to the district, and actually bringing some things in-house that we could do here with our own people and save a lot of money. That's one thing I think we need to do. If you keep subletting everything out, it costs a lot more money than you realize. And you could do probably 5 miles of pipeline for what it costs you to sublet one. I know that because I'm a contractor. I make those profits.
Okay, Gary.
Buck, our last question is, in closing, do you have any questions for the board?
Do I have any questions for you? No, I think we have a balanced board. We have good people on it. I know each of you pretty well at this point. I would love to work with you. I'm not a radical. I don't want to come in and overthrow the government. I think it's just nudging you in different directions and giving you some insights that might help. I study water day in and day out, and I live, breathe, and think about it. And solar energy, and I have a lot of ideas, and that vote might, having a vote and explaining why I vote that way might shift us into some new areas where we could do a lot of good for the district. I would like to see Joshua Basin be a district that everybody else follows the example of.
Thank you very much.
Should I stay in or not?
No, you can stay in here. Oh, the next person will be Jeff. I don't know how you say it. Donville? Hi there. So I will give you the opening statement. We're impressed with the number of people who have applied to fill this board vacancy. Our thanks to you. And in making this selection, we on the board will be putting our personal feelings aside and making our decision with the best interests of the district at heart. It is our goal to select the person who has the most to offer Joshua Basin Water District. And so that we don't fall asleep, I think that, I'll let you start. Excuse me, allergies are just killing me.
I'd just like to say thank you very much for applying and coming through this process, and it's a privilege to be interviewing. Question number one is background. Will you please tell us a little bit about your background and how long you've lived in Joshua Tree and why you're interested in serving on the board?
I was successful in obtaining a 5-acre property with a little homestead cabin on it back in December of 2015, and was moving myself up from the low desert. I'm a kind of a landscape person, so I had a lot of plants to bring up. As I've settled in, I've had a little more time to look at community issues going on. I attended a water harvesting workshop last year up in Landers. I attended the district tour of the water here. I think it was in April, late April. I was here for the Water Day where we had all the other presenters around. So I've not been here long, but the reason I'm interested is that, well, my dad was a World War II vet, and so I was raised by him, and he said, if you're going to bitch about things, then get involved. If you're not going to get involved, then sit down and shut up, you know. And he said, this country's not great because it's perfect, but it's great if people will get involved and try to make things as good as they can. So my life over the past 40 years, I'm a social worker by background. I've worked for nonprofits. I served one term as a state legislator in Michigan from a rural district outstate, 2 peninsulas, so it was out here. I've been a lobbyist for various nonprofits. So wherever I've gone, if there has been an opportunity for me to be involved at some level in helping build community in a positive way and create interaction that invites people to be part of issues and problem solving in a positive way. My belief basically is that if you deal with people in a positive way, if they have good information, they will help make good decisions. When it's going to be divisive, then people start standing the ground, and it doesn't help the consensus building discussion. I've worked on issues from welfare reform to homelessness in Charlotte, North Carolina, to Michigan prison overcrowding. I was chair of a statewide group bringing all the parties together to try to find policy directions that would be positive and working. So while I've not been here long, I've tried to learn as much of it as I can, but my interest came from the district tour. I enjoyed that, and reading the little book that was here. And I don't have an agenda, so I come pretty baggage-free. Okay, I don't have any preconceived notions, but I'm an intelligent person. I believe in assessing situations, getting good information, and looking both at short-term and long-term needs, and in this case, making sure that the constituency, the members of the district, the payers of the district, are fully informed of the current situation and also where we're headed down the road. So let me just stop at that.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi there, Jeff.
Hey.
Thank you so much for coming and applying. Doesn't matter how long you've been here. If you're interested and have that desire, that's really important. Thank you so much. Understanding of board protocol. Could you describe your understanding of what your role on the board would be as a director?
Yeah, I've been in various capacities, either an executive director of an organization, or in my hometown in Michigan, I was the chairperson of the planning commission. I've worked at state level offices where I was staff person. My view of the board is that it is responsible to the constituency, and its responsibility is to gather information, make policy decisions, but there needs to be an appropriate delineation of responsibilities from that. The board is not there to run an organization on a day-to-day basis. That's entrusted to your general manager, and the general manager with the staff. So that would be, I guess, the best way that I would understand a board position is to look at policy, provide leadership. I think these days there's a lot of emphasis on transparency in any public serving body. So I'm very committed to being available to meet with the public. I attended my first Citizens Advisory Committee on the 9th of this month. That's a great place for me to be involved. But the board is policy, and they need to provide listening to the public and then leadership in decision-making, setting policy, but they're not the ones to do the day-to-day operations. So I'll stop with that.
Very good, thank you.
So you already mentioned it, leadership, and well, first, I want to echo the other board members. I really appreciate you applying and coming out tonight and being willing to subject yourself to this process.
I've done that for my whole life, but thank you. Yeah.
I sense that. I sense a deep commitment to community, which is really wonderful. So leadership, how would you describe your leadership style in dealing with other board members, management, and the public?
Probably from my one term that I served in the legislature, I got elected in 78, and I lost in the Reagan landslide in 80. Not much was done at that district. There were only three Dem reps elected in 150 years. But anyway, out of that time that I served in the legislature, I gained a reputation, even in just 2 years, at age 25 or 26, I think I was, that I was a person who could navigate issues, could dialogue with stakeholders and constituencies and build consensus in decision-making. So that's my style. Wherever I've worked, either as a staff person, as executive director, or as a chair of a committee, is to ferment discussion, information gathering, looking at the facts, making sure the facts are clear, dispelling myths that are myths, and bringing parties together for positive decision-making. So that's, I guess, my style or my sense of what the role would be that I would try to take on.
Thank you.
Okay.
I apologize for my coughing. These allergies are absolutely killing me this year. Relevant knowledge of Joshua Basin Water District. It is the board's duty to focus on the future of JBWD. What would you consider to be the district's highest priorities, and how do you think we should address them?
I think based on the half a day that we toured around the district and my participation in the Citizens Advisory Group the other evening, and I'm amazed that there's water lines out where I'm at on Winters Road, way out in the boondocks.
We are too.
Yeah, so I haven't gotten the full history on that, but I understand that that may have been laid in the 50s or 60s, but it's been there a long time. I think we had a water pressure regulator valve on the main line out there give way this past fall, which ended up in our getting a spike in pressure and blowing some of my PVC apart. And luckily I was there and we were shutting the water off. But I sense that the most pressing issue right now is looking at the infrastructure of the whole system and getting a good accounting of what are the current needs to maintain the system in today's operation, but anticipating where we need to be in the long haul and what maintenance activities that may not have been attended to so well in the past, that those be put out for the community members to know what they are and to have plenty of discussion, hopefully positive discussion, so that it, as I think there's a rate discussion that's going to be going on, that people are confident that they're getting good information and they're being involved in the decision-making process, and that for the long haul, we will have a system that is well-maintained, continues to provide quality water at as reasonable a rate as possible. I'm not I don't have any position on Governor Brown, but I know in the last few weeks he's had this issue about either we do highway maintenance now or we don't. And if we don't do it now, then the costs are going to be great down the road. If shingles blow off my roof, I either can leave it like that, we don't get a lot of rain here, but I either replace it. If the red light comes on and my engine light comes on in my car, I continue to drive, I probably will do great damage to my engine over the long run. Okay? So, as long as the brakes work and there's plenty of oil in the engine and the steering's reliable, that's okay. But so I think that's the greatest challenge probably facing. And I'm not sure, I haven't had access to look at the information of people moving in or not, but my understanding from my neighbors is that has begun to be increase in people moving here as opposed to when the military base was in decline. So as we have new people come in, they need to be aware, and for folks who've been here a long time, they need to be valued as well in terms of their outlook. But I think there are tough financial issues that could be even tougher if not addressed at the current time.
Thank you.
Question number 5, professional experience. Briefly describe any professional experience you have which would help you fulfill your duties as a board member.
Where I've been, well, I'd say with the Planning Commission in my hometown, with the Prison Overcrowding Project as chairperson there of the board of the body task force, working on welfare reform and then working on homeless services. Do the question again back for me, I think I lost it.
Sure. Briefly describe any professional experience you have which would help you fulfill your duties as a board member.
Yeah. So in all those situations where I've been maybe the lead person for trying to build consensus, that's what I would bring here. As I said at the outset, I don't come with great knowledge of all the problems in the district. I don't have a long-term history of being a resident up here, but I am committed to transparency and public involvement. The owners are the people in the district. And should I be on the board, one of the main roles I would see is trying to participate with my other board members and the general manager in finding ways that we can improve the involvement of the constituency so that they're well-informed and confident that the information they have is accurate, both for the short term and the long term. And I'm characterized as a consensus builder in an honest way. I'm not into power politics. Power is the people. And if the people are mobilized with good information, then the right things will happen. And the board needs to listen to the public, and then they need to hold the general manager and the staff accountable for whatever policy directions have been made by the board.
Thank you.
Appointment to the board requires that the appointee be available for regular and special board meetings as well as committee assignments, which may entail day and evening hours as needed, and driving. That red light on your car, you want to watch it?
Yeah, I know.
Are there any reasons that would preclude you from this kind of availability and flexibility?
No, as long as I keep a good set of tires on my truck, my little Ford Ranger, I'll probably be okay. But our road out there is pretty rough, so I have to allow lots of time to get from point A to point B. There are some days when I have felt to be almost monastic, hermit-like out there. So part of what's healthy for me is to not try to be all over the place in the community, but to try to choose maybe a place where I can have a positive impact that's fulfilling to me personally, knowing that I'm doing a good thing, and that brings whatever skills I have that are positive to that same community. So yes, I'm available, would be available there. I don't see any reason that there would be any difficulties with that. And others leave it at that. Yep.
So the next question concerns conflict of interest.
Yep.
And it is, are there any pertinent issues And please get some water, make sure.
Yeah, and this is our water, by the way. I fill it up, freeze it, and then top it off, so
Excellent.
I'm not into bottled water that much.
Great. Are there any pertinent issues that the public might construe as a conflict of interest?
Since I have very little history here, I don't think there's, I know I don't have any conflicts at this point.
Right.
I have 5 acres. I'm interested in doing some desert landscape sort of plant growing to hopefully contribute into the community. We were involved with Kathleen this last week, going out and doing wildflower harvesting, seed harvesting. I want to get connected with the Mojave Desert Land Trust and the park to look at how I might even volunteer time there for that effort. But if I become a huge grower out there on my 5 acres, you know, and consuming a lot of water, at some point that might make a conflict of interest, but I don't think so this time. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and the last question is, do you have any questions for us on the board?
No, not that I know of. I appreciate you all welcoming my application. And although I'm a newcomer, like I said, I don't come with an agenda. I don't have any preconceived notions about what needs to be done at this point. And I guess the only question I would have is that the nature of your board operation at this time is good information and working together to build consensus and provide accountability and leadership for the district. I sense it is that. So that's not a specific question.
Well,
You want to answer that?
yeah, I would say you articulated exactly what I strive for as a board member, and I feel that my fellow board members are striving to do the same thing.
Great. Says it should be.
Okay, thank you very much.
Can I move around and use the bathroom and go out the other door or something? Come back.
I'm sorry, what?
You're welcome
Yeah, you can go to
to-
the restroom.
Yeah, we
Oh, yeah,
back.
it's down the
Come
hall.
back in here.
And Jeff, you're welcome to come back in here.
Yes.
that.
Yeah,
Yes.
just come on through.
Thank you.
Oh, Tom, sorry, it's alphabetical. Ooh.
Yes. One of them is unconstitutional. Get it one.
I might prefer being on the side of the meeting.
Oh, yes, me too.
Last
We get
election,
started this time.
they usually give you samples, go through office.
Yeah.
We gotta get it.
Okay, so I will read the beginning. We're impressed with the number of people who have applied to fill this board vacancy. Our thanks to each of you. In making this selection, we on the board will be putting our personal feelings aside and making our decision with the best interests of the district at heart. It is our goal to select the person who has the most to offer Joshua Basin Water District. And we'll start the questions with Rebecca.
Hi there, Tom. Welcome. Glad to see you at the podium
Thank you.
and
Good to be here.
on the grill, so to speak. Please tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've lived here in Joshua Tree, and why you're interested in serving on the board.
Fair question. I started coming out to the desert in roughly 1965. We'd go out the Amboy Road, and people had a cabin out there. Water was so scarce that if you washed your hands, you didn't dump out the pan. You saved it for the next person to wash their hands. But anyway, that was 1965, and when I got a little bit older, I decided I want my own cabin, and came out here with my father. And he didn't like the idea of driving all the way up to 29 Palms. And so he talked me into stopping in Joshua Tree. And there was a real estate lady just east of the Circle K right there, in those brick buildings there. And she showed us a cabin a couple of miles that way. And at the time, it was sort of springish, I guess. There was a carpet of yellow flowers on the property. And it was a cinder block, steel framed, everything. And other than the price, I love the place. I had the idea of maybe a mortgage payment of $35 a month, and this was going to be about $50. And so my dad says, "Don't worry, I'll help you with the down payment," which is now $1,000. And bought my cabin in about '72 or so, and sort of maintained my job in Long Beach until it became time to retire. And the house next to my cabin became available, and so I bought that. And then the housing market collapsed, and so I didn't want to buy high out here and then sell low in Long Beach, where I lived for 58 years. So I waited for 10 years. So I had a cabin here for roughly 30 plus. Then I bought a house, held it for 10 years. The market got better and sold a Long Beach house, and I've been out here for 2 years now full time. And that's when you started noticing me the most, I think. It was about that time. The career was in law enforcement in LA County. I retired honorably, I might add. They gave me a medal. And I want to disabuse anybody of the idea that I'm here to clean up the district, or I'm the new sheriff in town, or any of that kind of stuff. That's 11 years in the past, and I'm just trying to make a home for myself out here. And before that, obviously, there were part-time jobs doing this and doing that, but minor education. Mostly I've just worked all my life. And when I had spare time, I'd come out to the desert. And once I got here, I didn't drive around much. I just stayed at my cabin. As for why I want to do this, hard to explain. It's I heard Susan explain just the other day how much she enjoys doing what she does, working here, the challenges. It's just interesting for some reason. It is simply interesting. And it's important, obviously, water in the desert. So I've started participating initially when it was the discussions about having a demonstration garden. And that kind of got me coming here. Bill Long was the president then of the board. And I was intrigued by other aspects of it too. And my interest in it is just simply grown. I'm actually getting a little wonky about all of the reading MOUs and things from LAVCO and the Hoover Commission.
Yeah.
Thanks to Gil, bringing that up 2 or 3 times, I started looking into that. It's simply interesting, that's all. I can explain why it's interesting. I've given time in the past in the law enforcement field back in the 70s, 3.5 years as a volunteer deputy sheriff at the Lakewood station. I did that as a volunteer. I know what it feels like to work hard for, in that case, $1 a year. That's just something I want to do.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
Are we
You-
going to, oh, okay.
Yeah, you're next.
Hi, Tom. Thank you very much for your application and being here tonight, and for all the service to date to the Water District. Very much
Glad to
appreciate
do.
it. So the next question is about one's understanding of board protocol, and so if you would please describe your understanding of what your role on the board would be.
Yeah, I've thought about that. It's joining a board. It's becoming the 5th person on a 5-member board. The guy that would have the most minimal experience as a director, seniority-wise, and all that. I would not be the general manager. I would not be the assistant general manager. I would not be the chief financial officer. I would not be the auditor, the accountant, or anything, I'd be a member on the board. And generally speaking, it's to simply set policy, make sure the water's clean. There's a list of 6 or 7 of them on the website. But it's in that context that one is on the board. General manager runs the place. And we're supposed to just set the policy as board members. And also the new one that came up that I didn't see listed was to approve the MOU. That wasn't listed anywhere, and I thought, well, there's another one. It's important.
Thank you.
Thank you. 3 is leadership. How would you describe your leadership style in dealing with other board members, management, and the public?
The way I've done it so far, the way I handle myself here, so to speak, is I approach it modestly. I want to hear what other people have to say. The other day when we had the Citizens Advisory Council meeting, I think Susan was standing there. Patty, who was participating, we had a group discussion in the lobby out here as our part of the greater discussion. She and I started to talk at the same time, and we both said, "Excuse me," and I said, "No, you go ahead. I don't want to be a bully." And that's part of it. I tend to be a team player. When I did sports, handball, I'd be the one that would be standing back just a little bit, watching what others were doing, and when I saw gaps, I'd fill the gap. Maybe not immediately, but it's going to be a low-key kind of thing. I'm not going to try and take charge of anything. If that's offered, that's one thing, but I'm not going to push everybody aside, not listen, that kind of thing, especially to the public, because it's a public agency. For water to the customers. And it isn't just between us and the customers. There are agencies in the state that monitor what we do here. And if we're not going to be able to properly deliver water the way our, I'll say charter, I don't know what the word is with LAFCO, local agency formation commission, I guess. If we can't do what we've promised we would do, which is deliver safe, clean water, they're going to point that out to somebody farther up the chain, and we may get reorganized involuntarily. And so,
Hope not, yeah.
That's true.
Sherry. So anyway, this is serious stuff. We talked about this at the CAC meeting, the Citizens Advisory Committee, about this last week or so, I guess it was. And we simply are to the point where we may not, possibly in the short term, not be able to deliver the water that we want to. Somebody may have to come out and shut off a valve somewhere to close a leak and say, we'll be back when we can because we're doing 2 already someplace else. And somebody's going to be without water for a period of time, in an area of the community. This is serious stuff, and we have to find solutions. We have to start doing things. It's been too long.
Thank you.
Tom, briefly describe any professional experience you may have had that would help you fulfill your duties as a board member.
No, that's not there. There's very little in my former line of work that is comparable to delivering water. There is a requirement to be thoughtful and professional in the law enforcement field. There is people watching, there's supervision, these are all things that we find in any workplace. And that's almost the extent of it. Privately, I have a half a mile of pipe in my own yard. with a 16 valve system that I put in with a big old timer and stuff, which doesn't get used very much these days. And it hasn't, that was installed before the big drought. But no, that's not a me thing, prior. I've been here for a while. I've been watching you folks for years now. And that's primarily where I get some of my opinions and suggestions and stuff, which I'm not offended when you do not take my suggestions. I just simply make them. And similarly here, if I'm not selected for the board, I'm good. I can go back to the farmer's market and come to your financial meetings in the morning and be fascinated. The last one was a record breaker, I must say. It lasted for 3 hours. And
Finance committee?
Very, very edifying. I enjoyed that. That was a real snort.
It was a riveting 3 hours.
Oh, my God. Tom, thank you. I would rather campaign than have to be up at that podium answering people's questions, so.
Well, I got a dry mouth talking outside with Mike Reynolds about my Jeep.
Oh.
He's a Jeep whiz, and, I wanted to pick his brain, and so, Anyway, am I done?
Yeah.
I could retreat?
No,
not yet.
More
We've got a
questions.
couple more. You're almost done
Just
there.
3 more, you're overwhelmed. So,
Don't hit me.
Tom, the next question is about your availability, and I think we already have a bit of a clue about that, but I need to ask a question. Appointment to the board requires that the appointee be available for regular and special board meetings, as well as committee assignments, which may entail day and evening hours as needed. Are there any reasons that will preclude you from this availability and flexibility?
No, it could mean that I'll have to cut back at the farmer's market by about 4 hours a week, because there's already going to be a director there for an hour, and so there won't be so much of a need for me to be there for the 5 hours that I do now every week. I help pitch the tent and take it down. And
Hold it down when it's windy.
Yeah.
that's one arm before. I try to be as helpful as possible. Last night I helped Kathleen take the garbage out after the event here last night.
I'm not going to feel guilty.
Okay, thank you.
It wasn't hard, it was already unlocked, the dumpster. I've been doing it, I go to every meeting. There's the morning meetings, I call them, there's at least three of them. I come to all of the board meetings. I do anywhere, it's typically 8 in the morning to closing time at the farmer's market every Saturday. I've been doing that for a year and a half or so, which I enjoy because the people, including Kathleen Ratnick, and the two docents that assist her, they're tremendously smart people. And I soak up all kinds of stuff from them. And now we have directors there for 1 hour on Saturdays, and I get to listen to them, especially Bob recently. He's been very, very helpful within the last week or two. And by the way, that's a great thing. You're all very engaged. Rebecca goes out there in front and literally tries to pull people in and all that. No, I don't. I'm not excited about going to Washington, D.C. or some such thing. But I was actually looking today at where the Mojave Water Agency was, and looking at the route, which is simple, 247, 65 miles. Because one has to be prepared for these things. So the load, if anything, it could be less.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, number 7, conflict of interest. Are there any pertinent issues that the public might construe as a conflict of interest?
Nothing. Nothing. I'm a retired guy. As I said, I get an allowance from Los Angeles County. It's quite ample. I earned it, 336 paychecks. They took out 10% each month out of those 336 paychecks. So I make a acceptable Joshua Tree. I don't need anything from anybody. I don't, no, I'm good. I'll cut it off.
Thank you.
Last question. Do you have any questions for the board?
Do I have any questions for the board? Not in this meeting. I'll hold it for, I think, for finance.
See you there.
I just want to know if the, the MOU is retroactive to September 3.
No.
No.
Question. Well, we have to fix something.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Tom.
you.
Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And for the, if you didn't get it, he comes to every meeting we have, every board meeting, committee meeting, everything.
Tom needs a life.
Yeah.
God, this is wonderful
You can
candidate.
stay in here, Tom.
You want to stay in this item? And
And so.
Mr.
Oh, we have two
Larson?
more. Dave Larson.
Yeah, looks like it's okay. Susan has a more formal printed one
yes, they have to sign something, right?
and date it.
Yeah. I have to. I can't
Welcome, Dave.
Hi, everybody. Thank you.
read to them.
It's good to see everybody.
Yes, nice to see you.
Be sure they sign it today.
We're impressed with the number of people who have applied to fill this board vacancy. Our thanks to each of you. In making the selection, we on the board will be putting our personal feelings aside and making our decision with the best interest of the district at heart. It is our goal to select the person who has the most to offer Joshua Basin Water
Talked
District.
about the office.
And is it you?
Yeah.
Really should get that form.
I don't know where we are.
So first, I also want to echo that. Thank you for your interest and taking the time to apply and for being
Thank you,
here
sir.
tonight. Really appreciate that. So the first question is about your background. It's a two-parter. Would you please tell us a little bit about your background, how long you've lived in Joshua Tree,
Sure.
one, and two, why you are interested in serving on the board?
All right. I've been in the Morongo Basin for about 10 years. I live here in Joshua Tree with my wife, Brandy, and we have a daughter, Haley, who's 14. And we love having a national park in our backyard. We love the clean air and the dark night skies. We love being out here. I do work at the national park. I've been an employee there for about 7 years. I have history as a water agency director. I know water issues really well. I do care about these issues. So to answer the question, I've been out here about 10 years, and I'm looking forward to serving the community as a director of the water agency.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Understanding of board protocol. Describe your understanding of what your role on the board would be.
All right. I do have experience as a water agency director, years of experience. I would foresee my role on this board to be just what it is, and that's 1 vote out of 5. I envision working collectively and collaboratively with my fellow directors to do some very good work that we can be proud of. I know how important these issues are. In the past, if you look at my record, voting on a board of directors, I think most of the votes always went 5-0, but I'm not afraid to go my own way either. If I feel strongly about an issue, I won't just go my own way. I'll try to bring others with me, and I'll make a strong argument for why you should come with me on an issue. So what you can expect to get with me is somebody who will work productively and collaboratively with you to do some really good work for the public, work that we can be proud of.
Thank you.
I appreciate you being here.
Thanks, Bob.
The question I have is, what do I have? Leadership. How would you describe your leadership style, which you sort of went in, and that's why I'm thrown off here, dealing with board members, management, and the public?
Sure. My experience on previous board of directors for water agencies is pretty diverse. It includes being a chairman of a subcommittee. It includes being a commissioner on the Pipeline Commission out here. I sat right next to Bob Statham on the Pipeline Commission. My philosophy of being a board member is, I think it's the responsibility of the board member to read his agenda packet, to study, to know the issues, and to come and exercise sound judgment. And I'm very well prepared to do that, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Dave, hi.
Hi, Rebecca.
Good to see you at the podium.
Good to see you.
Oh, my
I'm glad
gosh.
to be here, and I'm excited about it.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for applying. I know you've great experience working with one of our our neighborhood watering districts, Bighorn Desert View,
Yeah.
trial by fire.
Yeah, that was a contentious board and a contentious electorate, and they had their issues, but in that chaos, I was described as a voice of reason on that board, and I think I did bring kind of a level, calm demeanor to that board, which could be contentious, yeah, you bet.
Well, knowing what you know about water districts, but here back to Joshua Basin,
Sure.
it's the board's duty to focus on the future of our district. What do you think would be the district's highest priority here, and how we could address those?
All right. I think, with respect to this agency's issues locally here, I think the biggest issue facing the board right now is the chromium-6 issue. I know that's been on the radar, it's been in the public eye, but with good reason. It's the biggest issue facing this agency right now, because if forced to comply with those issues, the cost that's going to be passed along to the ratepayer is going to be significant. And I think it's a disservice to the ratepayers if we don't do our best to address those issues. So that's the big one. That's the big one in the room. But there are many other issues facing this agency. You've got an aging infrastructure. You've got the recharge issues, planning for future growth. With respect to rates and things, you've basically got this one formula. You've got the cost of the infrastructure, maintaining the current infrastructure, expanding the future infrastructure, and then how many ratepayers do you have to amortize those costs? So it's important that we do our best to serve the public and spend money wisely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So the next question is concerning experience, and what we'd like is for you to briefly describe any professional experience you have, which would help you fulfill duties as a board member.
Okay. I touched on it a little bit. I did serve a number of years as a director on the Bighorn Desert View Water Agency. At that agency, I won an election in 2009. I served 2 years, was re-elected to a 4-year term in 2011, and I resigned from that position when I bought a house outside of the district. My wife and I bought a house right here in town in Joshua Tree, and because I moved outside of the district, I did resign my seat. While I was at Bighorn, I was liked and respected both by my fellow directors and the ratepayers there. I'm really proud of the work that I did there. I got along very well with my fellow directors. We did some very good work. In addition to being a board member, I was a chairman of a subcommittee. I did sit on the Morongo Basin Pipeline Commission. So I'm very familiar with the pipeline and the recharge infrastructure. I'm very familiar with this agency's infrastructure and this district's infrastructure. I've been to the recharge basin here. I've done the water agency's tour of the infrastructure. I know the infrastructure pretty darn well, And I also know the issues that we're facing with respect to the chromium-6 treatment options, the associated costs, which are scary. And I also understand there's 2 or 3 options out there that are available for us to pursue. And so I think I'm well prepared to do this. I'm well prepared to do this, and I'm looking forward to having an opportunity to do so.
Thank you.
Okay, I think you know this. Appointment to the board requires that the appointee be available for regular and special board meetings as well as committee assignments, which may entail day and evening hours if needed. Are there any reasons that would preclude you from this availability and flexibility?
No.
Thank you.
My question is pretty simple, conflict of interest. Are there any pertinent issues that the public might construe as a conflict of interest?
None that I'm aware of. My work at the National Park, I don't think it would be construed in any way as a conflict of interest. And if any conflict of interest did arise, it's very easy to abstain from a vote on one issue.
Roger that, thank you.
Yeah.
Dave, do you have any question for us?
Not
For
at
the
this
board.
time.
Come on. Sling one out there.
One question for you?
Thank you, thank you. If you don't have any questions, thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Okay, are we ready for?
We're ready for Mike.
Our R in the alphabet.
Last but not least, Mr. Reynolds. We're impressed with the number of people who have applied to fill this board vacancy. Our thanks to each of you. In making this selection, we on the board will be putting our personal feelings aside and making our decision with the best interest of the district at heart. It is our goal to select the person who has the most to offer Joshua Basin Water District. So I think we're starting with you, is that right?
I started last
you, I
time,
think.
so it's back to you.
Also, it's me. Number 1, your background. Please tell us a little about your background, how long you've lived in Joshua Tree, and why you're interested in serving on the board again.
Well, thank you, Madam President, esteemed members of the board. Background, do I have any? A little bit, yes. Starting with my history to Joshua Tree, I was conceived in Joshua Tree.
Uh-oh, TMI.
My mom and dad spent their honeymoon. My dad's a Marine. And anyway, long story short, that's where I came to start my first moments of life before I was born. I was actually born in West Covina. But the Joshua Tree goes a little bit back. As my dad was in the Marine Corps, he had 11 brothers and sisters. Many of them at that time moved into the homesteading of Joshua Tree and Yucca Valley and Landers. And with that came a whole lot of relatives moving out here. And so growing up my whole life, we would come out for Christmas and holidays. And this was always a home away from home for me. I'd spend weekends and summers. 1980, I bought my uncle's cabin. And that was a weekend getaway. And so I would go up there and then later on bring my family. 92, the earthquake decided it didn't like that cabin any longer. And I bought a house. Then I moved into that house. It was also a weekend getaway. I called it a motorhome. It was about the price of a motorhome, but better. It was out here. I could leave my stuff in the garage and the refrigerator packed, and all I had to do was jump in and come to up here. And I still have that house, but it wasn't long after I realized, how long has it been since I actually went home? And I didn't plan on moving up here, it took me. And so I've been blessed, this is home. And 1999, I think, was when I officially made it permanent. In 2003, we built our current home right there on Sunfair in Joshua Tree, and that's where I reside currently.
Thank you.
Greetings.
Thank you.
It's good to see you. Understanding board protocol. Describe your understanding of what your role on the board would be.
My role on the board, it actually has three things. One is a board member is in charge of the business of the water district, not the day-to-day running of the water district. Two, the board has one employee, and that would be the general manager. And it's the board's job to give the general manager direction to foresee the future of the water district. And three, the board has to make decisions. And sometimes the decisions are easy and sometimes they're tough. And to make a good decision, you must be informed, but you also must have the humility to go into the meeting, sometimes thinking you have made up your mind. And then after hearing the ratepayers' thoughts, the attorney's thoughts, the general manager's thoughts, and the other board members' thoughts, your prenup opinion sometimes might have to change. You can go in there thinking one thing, but you have to have the humility to say, you know what? My first thought was wrong. There's a better way.
Thank you.
Hey there, Mike.
Hi.
Boomerang Board Director. Hi. You know, actually, the first question had a second part to it, Madam President, and it was asking Mike why he was interested in serving on the board.
Well, thank
you want
you.
to pursue that?
I'd like to address that. Over the past 8 years, I have been a board member. I've enjoyed that position, and what an honor. It's not easy, but I think I can do a good job. I think I have the ability to go in with experience and the knowledge of history, of what's happened in the past, where we are headed in the future, and I'm able to make decisions seeing both sides. I chose not to be re-elected this last election for personal reasons, and those reasons have been laid to rest. I had plans on running in the next election, and the opportunity has presented itself tonight.
Thank you, Mike. And then I also have a question. How would you describe your leadership style in dealing with other board members, management, and the public?
First and foremost is respect. 5 board members are 5 leaders, 5 members of the business community that have to operate the business of the water district. 5 opinions, 5 people with 5 thoughts, 5 different thought processes, and sometimes not all 5 are the same vote yes. But we have to be able to respect each other. We have to be able to listen to each other, and we have to be able to absorb what all 5 members have to say and think on a certain item. With that comes the ability to make a decision.
Thank you.
Hi, Mike, welcome.
Thank you.
So the question I have for you is about relevant knowledge of the water district. And it's our duty, as I think you know, having been on the board, to focus on the future of this district. And so what would you consider to be the district's highest priorities, and how do you think we could address them?
Wow, the priorities are kind of like a tree as far as I see it. You have a trunk that has the main function and goal, and that is the long life term of the water district. And that trunk goes straight up into hundreds of years. First priority is what happens in the great future. How can we ensure that we have water for our children and our grandchildren? Our next priority, if you look up the tree, and then they branch off. and each branch gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And as you come back down, the next layer would be, well, what do we do about insuring things in the nearer future? For instance, the 10 to 50-year range. Gosh, we have so many things to look at in this water board. And then finally would be the big branches, and those are the ones that are in our face. Chromium-3. We're on the verge of some big changes and wonderful things happening with that, and I'm excited to see that, but it needs to stay on our radar. The next thing that's right in our face is our infrastructure. My goodness, our infrastructure is aging and it's getting old, and it needs to be addressed, and the board is addressing it in so many talks and plans in the financial planning. The infrastructure has always been a top priority.
Thank you.
Okay, number 5. Briefly describe any professional experience you have which would help you fulfill your duties as a board member.
Oh. Wow. Prior to being a board member at Joshua Basin Water District, I was on the executive committee and executive vice president at the BIA, the Building Industry Association. I served on that board for 10 years. That board was a good training. It taught me how to be a board member, and it also taught me this was a huge organization with a $10 million a year budget. It taught me how to budget money and how to look into the future and how to plan for and that's where I learned the tree theory. Following the BIA as a board member, I became a board member right here at Joshua Basin Water District 8 years ago. Some change. And so, yes, I've had a few years. I'm able to, fortunately, I'm a turnkey director. I'm able to come in, sit down into that seat, and go right to work.
Thank you.
And nice segue, because we're talking about flexible schedule. An appointment to the board requires that the appointee be available for regular and special board meetings as well as committee meetings and assignments, which may entail day and evening hours as needed. Are there any reasons that would preclude you from this availability and flexibility?
Well, I am a small business owner. Fortunately, God has blessed my business quite well. And now I have employees that are able to do most of the hands-on work, which affords me some time that I'm able to concentrate on the water district. And I have seen personally, there's sometimes you've got to go to an event or a special meeting or a training session that's during the day or during the week, sometimes taking many days. And I have attended most all of those conventions and training sessions, and I'm willing to do so again.
Thank you.
Are there any pertinent issues that the public might construe as conflicts of interest that you can?
Not that I can think of.
Thank you.
So lastly, Mike, in closing, do you have any questions for us?
No, I don't.
Okay.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Do I sit down here?
Yes, you can sit down. Mr. Garrido, how do we proceed from here?
Well, you could take a break if you wanted to just mellow out a little bit, or you can just go right into the business at hand. And the chair could entertain a motion to make an appointment to one of these candidates. It's time for a motion, it's time for action. If you're ready for it.
So what's the board's pleasure on this? Do you want to take a break, or do you want to go right into the discussion? It all has to be done in public.
I just have a question for Gil. Can we have any discussion prior to entertaining a motion on
You can
this?
have all the discussion you think you need, but it has to be an open session.
Right.
Okay? So the board's pleasure is to have the discussion now?
Yeah.
Okay. Who would like to start?
do you want to do it candidate by candidate? Do you want to kind of go through?
It's the board's pleasure, I don't care.
Yeah, I guess we just need to decide on a format. Anyone have any ideas how they want to approach that?
Well, Madam Chairman, if I might, if any particular, I don't think you'd have to ask for the board at large to make comments, but if they have a need to make a comment, you could ask for that individual comment. But you could ask each board member.
Yeah. Do you have any comments?
Oh, yes, I do. And I guess, since I have it, maybe I'll go through each candidate and make a comment? Want me to do that, or?
I think it's up to you, Rebecca.
Kind of open it up,
It is
or?
admissible deliberation, if that's your choice, Rebecca.
I just, I don't want to, if somebody else has a different way they want to do it.
No, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, well, then I will start with Buck. And, let's see. Now, can we ask the candidates question, or we just deal among
I
ourselves?
think that is open with, unless you want to reopen it.
Just,
Yeah. And you're not going to characterize, argue this, Director, as a part of a motion. This is just your general observations that you'd like to
Right.
take into consideration before the chair entertains a motion. That's what I'm understanding you want to do.
So.
What is your intent in making comments? So I don't have to guess about it.
Like, I guess, I have seen many boards have to do this kind of thing, where they've
It's
had
always
to
awkward.
replace a board member. In fact, Bob, you've been through the process yourself. And you're looking at, a couple, three different angles. One, you're looking who's going to be the best fit for the board, who's going to be, and also and in our case, of course, we're replacing somebody who is very well-known, well-loved, and who was elected popularly, a couple of times here. So we have a duty to the community as well. Who would they like to see us? So ultimately, we are making the choice for them. We are making that decision for them, whereas we're replacing somebody who was popularly elected. So I guess I see that as a little bit of a responsibility in that wise. And
I get it, Rebecca.
yeah,
Those are totally appropriate observations you can share with your fellow board members. I get it. It may help them in formulating a decision.
so then, as to format then, are we going to discuss our impressions of each candidate with each
Only if you
other?
desire to individually, and your board member next to you has the same motion, or you could skip. There's
And
no
just- and it's
regulated
just with
format
us.
for this. And I'm getting from the drift that this is really important for you to share those personal observations. You're free to do so legally.
Okay, I will then. Starting with Buck Buckley, I had to say, I identified with one of his answers on protocol. I'm not big on protocol either, I have a little problem with that myself. And I was a little concerned that he stepped down from the CAC, which is such a valuable arm for the water district. He felt that he wasn't able to make much progress there. I felt, I don't know, maybe he might quit or not run for re-election. Buck has a lot of interesting ideas. I'm wondering how scalable they are. And, let's see, was there something else I had? Buck had 8 letters of recommendation. I was impressed by that. And anyone else have any observation they want to share on candidate number 1?
We'll just do it, you go through yours.
Okay. And then on Jeff Dunvillo?
Yeah, you silently.
The Dunvillo,
yeah.
Dunvillo, okay. I was impressed that he had wanted to get involved, not even having been here that long, but yet he seemed to have quite a good grasp of what it would take. I was impressed that he had gone on the district tours, gone wildcrafting, read Death of a Water District, and use that to make a decision to actually want to be on the board. He's got a lot of experience in it before he moved here, working on many issues, community issues, and I was kind of impressed. He's moved around a lot, but I know now he's bought his little 5-acre slice of heaven here in the desert, so he's going to be here for a while. Let's see here. And then, good heavens, Tom is doing everything but the board so far. He goes to all of the meetings, he's very informed, even goes to the farmer's market. He has probably, for not ever sitting on this board, he has one of probably the best grasp of what is going on with the water district. And yes, he said it's water is interesting, and yeah, he's right. It is interesting. And maybe that's, some of the reasons why each of us do. We find it interesting. And in looking at his application, I think he is extremely modest about his qualifications, and that's nice quality. Dave Larson has a lot of experience on water districts. He spent many years on Bighorn, and he's one of the 2 candidates that I've had a chance to observe on water district and see how they work and how they act and how they make decisions and how they interact with the public. And in my mind, both of those things, that's quite an up for me to have, such experience with both these candidates, seeing them act as board directors. And while water is interesting, it isn't easy. And the fact that, these people want to get back into it again, that's pretty good. And Mike made a comment on why he's interested again, and I felt there was a poignancy there. And certainly Mike has served this district for 8 years. Had been on BIA, understands board work, longtime member of the community. It's almost like we could fill another board. Still have to fill that seat, but we could still have another board with the people that are here tonight. It's going to be, from my point of view, extremely difficult to make this decision. And I cede to
Thank you.
next.
You want to go next?
Sure. I'd just like to say thank you. Been in that position. I know the awkwardness of it, so I empathize with the whole process. I think for me, one of the senses that I have a sense of expediency about being able to step in and take care of business, and that needs to happen, and we have some well-qualified folks. This is awkward at best because some of you I know well, and I would gladly change position if that was supposed to be. And we've had those conversations, and so this is a small town, and you know each other, and things go well. I will say one of the things that's extremely important for me, and I think for the board, is continuity. And we need to see, and I don't know that it was raised, it is in the packet about are you willing to run for election if you were selected? And I remember that being one of the questions that was asked to me at that point in time, and I think the packets reveal those candidates that are interested in continuing on. We have 18 months. It's a spin-up period, so whoever's selected, at least in my mind, needs to be ready for that next election.
Thank you.
Thanks. Well, I think Rebecca and Bob very much summarized and characterized my feelings. I was incredibly impressed by each of your interviews, and I would agree with Rebecca, we could almost fill another board from this group tonight, which is going to make it incredibly difficult to make a decision, because I think you each bring some strengths that would be useful to this board, and I would rather do almost anything else tonight than have to select one of you and tell the other, sorry, not this time. So I also agree that it'd be very useful to us to have someone that can hit the ground running, and I think we have several candidates here tonight that could do that. And perhaps all. It doesn't necessarily mean that because you haven't done a lot of things with water that you wouldn't have the aptitude to do this. There'd be a steeper learning curve, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful to each of you and for your interest. And I thought that some excellent interviews were given here tonight.
Thank you. You well passed the buck, thank you. I think that the most important consideration for me is someone who's up to speed with what's going on, because we have some big issues ahead of us. We've got 4,500, a little more than that probably, connections, and we have some big expenses coming up. We haven't done anything about infrastructure in a long time, and there are needs that you can't keep kicking that down the road. And so I want someone who actually knows what we're doing and has been around, and actually Tom has been the person that I have been most impressed with. He comes to every meeting. He works at Farmers Market. He really does know the issues of the district. So I think that that's really important. And while I appreciate everybody else having been here, I think that having someone who can hit the ground running is really, really important.
Well, I will add about Tom that I've been incredibly impressed with his participation, his commitment to the district, his interest in the district, and I do feel that those attributes definitely put him in a place to be strongly considered. And I say that, again, with a heavy heart because I think each of you could do this job. And I hope that tonight, regardless of who we select, that each of you would consider staying engaged and giving it another go when you have an opportunity.
Are there, just for clarification, are there no-point questions to the candidates?
You can open it up for more questions.
Or just a clarification on the statement?
That's totally appropriate.
No, I totally concur that anybody that can endure 3 hours of finance meetings and on a regular basis deserves a couple medals, and not from the county. Tom, I appreciate you there. Do I understand, though, that you are not interested in running in 2018?
Should I go to the mic?
No, it's fine. I can hear you.
I'll just
Or
speak up.
Well,
Go ahead, please.
you better, to the public can't hear you. That doesn't amplify in here, but it goes to Bob and his taping.
Well, I'm 67 years old. I know there are probably people in the room that are older. Everybody carries their age differently. I can't say in 18 months, as I'm approaching, nearly 70 years old, what I would be willing to do. If you look at the past, which has been, 5 years plus of paying attention to all, this kind of stuff, I think we can assume that, as the environment changes, the job is always going to change up there depending on what the issues are. And so I don't think I'm going to get bored. And so, yes, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't run. It's just that I had this crystal ball sense that I was supposed to predict the future and know that I was going to be as capable as I am today, whatever we decide that is, a year and a half from now when I'm close to 70 years old. But my interest in this operation in these activities is growing. It's not diminishing. I'm reaching out as somebody says something of interest. I'm looking on the web, exploring all over the place. It's energizing. And so, yeah, I think I'd run again.
I think 70 is the new 50.
I agree with that.
Actually, that was a question I had for Tom. Thank you, Bob, for asking it. And it is an important question. It might seem funny. It might seem like, barring the unforeseen, sure, any of us can say something, barring the unforeseen.
Well, continuity is one of my issues too. I've thought about that. That's why I've been anxious to get the ball rolling on a lot of the projects that are pending. The regulations that one must go through to, the rate study is an extended period. It takes a long time to get things going, and I'm afraid we're going to lose some of the special people that we have here now. I think we have a confluence where a lot of special people are coming together, and we need to do something while they're here. We've lost Seth, and that was like a torpedo explosion when that occurred, I thought, because then I thought we were like the Yankees in the 30s then, having him here, having the general manager that we have, having Susan still here. Gil, even though he's contracted from someplace else, he's part of the family here. And then we're adding new people. This is the time to do something. And so dropping off is not the kind of thing that I want to happen. That's including me.
Well, I guess it's because being a board director is maybe not as much fun as what you're doing right now. You've actually got the more fun part of it because you don't have to get up here and, make the decisions, and you've seen us up here take hard votes. You've seen us divided up here. You've seen us, I know you've seen me, yell at applicants and call them carpetbaggers. So, I'm not saying you have to do that, but I mean, what you're doing is the fun part. You're in the things that you're interested in, and I just want to make sure you want to be a board director. I mean, you're really valuable where you are, but could you be valuable here too? So, I think it's the thought of where do you want to sit on this side of the dais or that side? Good question. And I want you to be happy.
Oh, they're all great, I think. As we all know here, I'm a member of the Citizens Advisory Committee. I have read every line of the urban water management plan and, submitted my copy of it with suggestions, which I would do differently now.
See the fun stuff. He likes the fun stuff.
It'd be more than just punctuation now, I would hope. I'm on page 15 of the MOU. That's hard going, reading these things. I know it isn't all, at the farmer's market saying how good the asparagus looks today and if the guy in the next booth is going to offer us strawberries or not. I know that it's going to be more than that. And I know that in particular, one of Bob's favorite issues is it's going to hurt people financially when we have to pay for stuff. It's not going to hurt me because I have my allowance from Los Angeles County.
That you earn.
I do have 2 meters and an inactive meter, so I'm going to feel it a little bit. But this is going to hurt people, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. I can recall some of the decisions when Mike Reynolds was up there. He was almost anguished about some of these financial impacts on people. And so I know it's not going to be fun sometimes, but it's going to be meaningful work.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from any of the applicants? Seeing none, do I have a motion? of any kind?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a public comment on this item.
Please feel free. State, go to the podium, state your name and your city of residence.
El Marquez, Sunfair Community. I hope I can make my comment in jest, make my comment within the 3-minute period before the gavel is slammed on me.
We do too.
I've reformed Al, I'm not going to do that again, I made the whole room jump.
Anyways, filling the vacancy of the Board of Directors of the Joshua Basin Water Agency Board is a 18-month term existing, that is vacant at this point in time, on the seat of the Board of Directors. This seat is a 4-year term, continuous till the next election in November of 2019, I presume. As in the recent past, the Board of Directors have filled a vacancy of a board of position by appointment by the Board of Directors. This is a very disturbing, is my thought, because the majority of the board often appoint someone not so much qualified to serve on the board, but to be a representative, should be of the ratepayers and the voters of the community, but to be in line with the majority of the existing board members is in conflict, because majority of the time they vote in unison, and in my thought it's cronyism. A special election must be conducted to fill a vacant of the Board of Directors so that the voters can decide who sits on the Board of Directors to represent them in the direction that the district will go in the future. This is one reference to the California Code 36512, which I'm very aware of. Ratepayers and the customers need to have members of the Board of Directors to represent them, not members to go along just to get along. And like I said, that the Government Code Section 36512, if a vacancy occurs in effective office or in this chapter, can be either appointed or a special election. And for 18 months left in the this position, I think the ratepayers would be better served if they had a special election, even though it might cost $20,000. That's just an amount that is not really attributable to a lot of the money that has been spent to the water district. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone else? Mr. Buckley?
Right on, pal.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak and to be here tonight. You have two gentlemen here sitting with experience far greater than mine or anyone else in the room. They've already sat on boards for water districts, and I would not feel slighted if you voted for one of them, but I would feel slighted if either one of them took the position. Both have served very well in this area and know everything needs to go on with this district, and they would be a shoo-in for the position. I just wanted to go on record to say that, and I do think that I lost by like 30 votes or something. It's the electorate that should vote in this position if this is kind of how things are going down, and it looks very interesting to me. Let's just put it that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Hi, my name's Julia Arrett, and I would just like to say that as a citizen of this village, I would really I urge the board, please, think about, you represent all of us that live here. Think about a well-rounded board that represents all of us, all points of view. Maybe the experience that you hold and you bring to the board, I don't know all of your backgrounds, but think about, is there anything that someone else could bring to the group that you don't already have, that could help you all to come to the smartest and most intelligent decisions that you can possibly come to? Maybe there's something lacking that one of these candidates, one of these applicants can bring that would be an additional asset to what you already have. That's all I'm really looking for. That's what my personal interests are, to represent the community, what the community wants. And that's smart, intelligent decisions. And that means each of you has additional assets that you don't all share. There's different ones for each of you. So there's 5 board members. The 5th one should have some additional assets you don't already have. Then we can have a more well-rounded board. So please just consider that when you come to your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Now we come to the hard part. What's the board's pleasure? Does anyone wish to make a nomination? Obviously you don't.
I do.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we consider Tom Flowen for appointment to the Board of Directors, that we appoint him.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Nothing. I will second that because I've watched Tom now for a couple of years, come to every single meeting, and he is very well aware of what's going on with this district. So we have a motion and a second.
Could I just add something?
Yes.
Thank you. As I said before, I really meant it to each of you. I didn't expect to have this level of response and quality of candidates in such a short time period. And it is a very difficult decision for me. However, I've gotten to know Tom, and I've seen his level of commitment to this district, and I think that's a really big deal, is the level of commitment that someone brings when they come here asking to be appointed to the board. And I also been very impressed with his knowledge and with his input to the board, and he's well liked by staff. He's well liked by the board members. I think that he really does bring some original ideas, but I also think that he brings a demeanor that is balanced and calm and receptive and respectful. I think that others of you here tonight also bring that, so that's what makes it difficult. But I have to say the thing that really sort of tonight put him over the top for me, because it is there are several of you that are excellent candidates, is Tom's dedication and commitment to this board is pretty unsurpassed as far as I'm concerned. And I think that he gave an excellent interview. And I really going in here tonight, I certainly had Tom in the running, but I wanted to, seeing the candidates that we had available to us, I really wanted to come in here with an open mind, which I did. And after hearing all of you, that's what I concluded personally, is that my first choice would be Tom Flowen.
Thank you. Yes.
And I too, I want to serve with every one of you. I want to sit on the dais with each and every one of you. And this has been a terribly hard decision.
Oh,
and it wasn't
painful.
made easier by the interviews.
No, I was hoping it would.
And this is one instance where I thought to myself, well, you know what? I would go with the board's majority on this, because I feel I would serve with everyone here. I would be happy to sit with any one of those people on the board tonight.
I would as well.
And Solomon,
Yes.
How come you all gave such great interviews? That's not fair.
Well, I think one of the things that I mentioned already is continuity and consistency. And I've spent the last 3 or 4 years here with the Finance Committee, which I know Susan and her folks just love me to death. But, that's the business that we do here at the district. And as a steward and a representative of the electorate, I try to put as much of myself into that as I possibly can. And I will say, Mike Reynolds, you know that I appreciate you and your work that you've done here. You by far certainly would be the #1 candidate in my book if, for one thing, and Buck, you and I are probably soul buddies here somewhere, and it would either be you or me here in this chair. The election is coming up in 2018, and we will see this. However, from my small world, I see one person that sits at my meetings regularly who's been there for the last 2 years, 18 months or whatever, painstakingly going through and injecting and providing some input. For me, that's one of the most difficult jobs as a board of directors here is watching our money, which we have little or none. And so I guess it's not that big of a job. But that being said, I appreciate Tom for his consistency and tenacity, and I specifically wanted to know, Buck and Mike, which I hope, and Jeff and Dave, please, the election's coming up. Are you going to run? And that is the question they asked me back in the day, because I had spent my years on the CAC, as most everybody else has around here, but specifically, and if Tom had said no, I don't want to spend 18 months schooling Tom up on what's going on with the books and everything else for a waste of energy. Mike Reynolds could come in and pinch hit right now, but I'll tell you what, we've been in some deep water, and Tom's been the only guy on the roster, so that's my rationale. So please understand it. I have no other motive or anything else here. It's very selfish, if you will. You can come to my house, we can talk finances of the district, because I too, Buck, have some grand ideas and we're still pushing. So, but Tom, thank you for the clarification on that.
Okay, we actually have a motion and a second out there. We will do a roll call vote.
Did we get a second? Yeah.
I seconded it.
Oh, okay.
So roll call vote.
Yes.
Yes.
Aye.
Aye.
Congratulations, Mr. Flowen, and thank you for your service. You have been here very weekend.
You're in for it now.
In 18 months, you will have the opportunity to face the public. Lucky you.
Madam Chairman, I think it's a time to administer the oath of office to the successful candidate.
All right.
That's what we were hustling for earlier.
They're going
Sorry
to
for
issue the
that.
oath of office.
They're going to issue the oath of office to you now, Tom.
Dave, 2018, you can try.
It would be appropriate for the district secretary to do so.
Hey guys, look on the bright side, having this problem is a much better problem than having only one applicant.
Exactly. It's more painful. It's more painful, but it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, embarrassment of riches tonight.
You should be proud of the work you did tonight. I think you did wonderful.
Thank you.
Start coming to the meetings.
Okay, do you need him?
Mr.
Tom?
Tom?
You're going to start working right away.
My stuff. That's the hardware, I think.
Oh, thank you.
So I get to administer this oath to you.
Susan, could you or somebody else get a photo of it? Thank
Take a
you.
minute to read it, so you know what you're about to say.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Kathleen. Why didn't I know that? Why didn't I just look up and see you there, right?
Okay. So, I state your name.
I, Thomas Flowen,
Do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies,
foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California.
and the Constitution of the State of California.
And I take this obligation freely,
And I take this obligation freely,
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
And
that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter.
All right?
Be sure he signs it tonight.
I guess I can sit now.
Okay. Let me look at the agenda. I
Within
think
14
we're done.
days.
No, we're not done.
I know we've got committee reports. The riveting finance committee, among other things.
Yes, the meeting date is May 24th, so there's a correction there at 9 o'clock. And I'll also just jump to the Water Resources meeting, which is also the 24th at 10. Please come, riveting, exciting, finances. Hope to see you there.
Very cool. Legislative and public information, Kathleen.
All right.
This is one of the most valuable people in the district. I want everyone to know that.
Aye.
Yeah, she's truly
All right,
amazing.
real quick.
No, we have it up there so we can show it. Go ahead, Kathleen. Okay.
We had our second session of wild crafting where we went out in the field. 9 of us were out gathering the spring seeds, although spring has not sprung yet. So many things were not ready, but we learned. And our goal in that process is to double our inventory for sales next spring. So we're going to go from about 250 plants, and we do think this is a good target, to 500 plants, and the sales, of course, go to regenerate the program. And as we are now entering in next spring into our 5th year, this will look really good if in fact, and I do believe we will hit that target, so the program might then be able to cost out as self-funding. So we're pretty excited. And anyway, session 3 is May 26th, 10 a.m., where we take seeds, we clean them, and then the participants learn about propagation. The hacks of nature are taught in the next session. And that is, again, May 26th, 10 a.m. at the Josh Tree Community Center. It takes about an hour and a half, and we do that in the morning. The CAC meeting, the second one that we had, where we worked on the what-ifs for the water district, all the issues, what if we don't address them. Karen Tracy will be making a full report on that at the next board meeting. I am under the understanding, so I'm not going to take time here, but do know it was a very fruitful gathering, a lot of great input from the community. The Water Education Day Festival happens next week, Thursday. 400 to 500 junior high students will be going through major water education from the other water districts, High Desert Water, Bighorn Desert View Water, and our water district, and we cover conservation. And then June 7th is the next Legislative and Public Information Committee meeting at 9:30 a.m., and we'll see you there. Thank you. Yes?
Will there be another seed collecting?
We will be jumping in and doing one in summer,
Okay.
and we will be doing the 3 sessions again, where it's the first thing is the overview, then we go out in the field, and then the third one is the cleaning and the propagation hacks, and then both groups are going to meet in September and take a tour of the nursery and see how it's done, how they're growing, how our babies are doing. So it culminates session 4 of both groups in September. So,
Excellent.
okay, and we don't have that date yet, so.
Yeah,
Thank
we
you.
were at Aqua, so I couldn't go up and collect seeds, but it sounds like they were few and far between. That's interesting considering all the rain and everything.
Yeah.
Item number 10, so you've done everything. Is there any district general counsel report? Mr. Canino?
Yes, the candidate, Mr. Larson, mentioned Chromium 6 litigation and how the court announced a decision May 5th. It's not over with. There's still a legal process that I'd like to let you know about. As you know, the court granted the petition for writ of mandate and will be ordering the department to rescind the MCL that it set 2.5 years ago and reset a new MCL. And the trial court was mainly centered on financial feasibility. And in the legal process that's going to unfold now is that the decisions come out. Now the petitioner's legal counsel is ordered to prepare a judgment. And in concert with the judgment, he has to prepare a writ. A writ is an order directed issued on behalf of the people of the state of California to the department to rescind the current MCL and to determine a new MCL that is supported by demonstrating financial feasibility. And it's interesting because the trial court judge in his decision said, and you're mandated, you're ordered to pay special attention to small, economically disadvantaged communities. Very well spoken by the judge. I think the judge got it right on this case. The petitioners, in the opinion of the trial court judge, not petitioners, the department, in the opinion of the trial judge, were unable to demonstrate that they had conducted an essential part of adopting MCL, and that's a financial feasibility study. He was very firm in that decision. What will happen now, like I started to say, is the petitioner's attorney will prepare a judgment. They'll also, in concert with that, prepare a writ of mandate. And then the petitioner's legal counsel will share it with the defendants, the Attorney General's office who was defending the State Water Resource Control Board. They'll massage it to their mutual satisfaction. Then they'll give it to the judge for his review and comment and approval. Once he approves the writ, as well as the judgment, the 60-day time clock starts for the department to decide whether or not they're going to file an appeal with the California Court of Appeals. This happens to be that Court of Appeals here in this case, if it is appealed, will be in the 3rd District of the California Court of Appeals. That's in Sacramento as well as the trial court. I personally happen to know that they're very backlogged on that Court of Appeals. We have a case there ourselves on a secret issue. Even though it had priority, it's taken a long time to vote. We haven't even had it, even though the briefing's all been done, oral argument hasn't scheduled. I'm just trying to tell you, it's really backlogged. If you think the trial court was backlogged, the Court of Appeals is going to be equally backlogged. There's going to be an interesting issue coming up. There's going to have a lot more to share with you in the coming month or two. What's going to be interesting, well, number one, is the department going to appeal? And if it does appeal, which is likely, they could petition the Court of Appeals, to stay the judgment and hold it in place and give the department a chance to argue the merits of the case or indulge in a reanalysis of what the appropriate MCL is with the appropriate financial feasibility. So this could, what I'm trying to tell you, this could be around for a long time. And I don't know what the department's going to do. Personally, I don't think, I'm going out on a limb here, and I'm never scared to do that. I don't think there's a chance that the Court of Appeals, if they ever rendered a decision, would reverse the trial court decision. I think it's just Hornbook law saying when an essential component is required in the regulations and law in setting MCLs, if you haven't done that exercise, conducted the appropriate feasibility study, I think the decision becomes pretty obvious. You got to do it over again. And that's what the judge decided. I think he got it right. That's not to say
the Attorney General attorneys did a marvelous job, in my opinion. I'm talking personally now. They presented a very strong argument that articulated a lot of reasons why the department got it right. But the judge's observation was very interesting because he said in his decision, you made some good points, Attorney General attorneys on behalf of the department, but that analysis just wasn't done when the department was adopting the MCL. And that's when it should have been done, not, I'm paraphrasing, not here in the courtroom. What are you saying, Gil? You said there's a lot of uncertainty. I think this is going to be around for a long time, whether or not the department appeals the decision. It was 3.5 years in the trial court level. It could take another 3.5 years at the appellate level. Who knows? I don't think so. And there's a compelling reason for everybody to do their job and do it right and get it over with fast.
So what do we do? What do we do?
I don't know yet. I don't know what the department's response is going to be. They may not appeal it and say, okay, we'll do it over again, ASAP. I don't know. I can't tell you now.
We don't do anything until they actually have a decision.
Oh, I have a plan.
No, they have.
But one thing I do want to bring to your attention, the financial feasibility study was the core issue in the case. And then if you read the order closely, it's a people's order. It's a trial, I'll just like in the Superior Court of California, the writ will be like, the people of California hereby order you, department, to rescind the MCL and set a new MCL with appropriate feasibility study supporting that setting. If it had been in federal court, it would be the president ordering. If it had been in the old days, the common law did the king ordering. It's interesting, and that's just the way it is. I don't know what you should do yet because I have to see what the department's response is. I'd be guessing now. I anticipate, again, personally, that they would probably file an appeal and at the same process ask the appellate court, to stay the judgment while they get to work on it to conform with the judge's direction.
So Gil, would they then need to set a new timetable regardless of which way this goes?
The legislature could do that in concert with what the department
It could seem like we could be...
Yeah. I just want to say, the lawyering in this case was really impressive on both sides. You remember long ago I told you that when this Solano Taxpayer Association gets involved in the matter, they're well-heeled and they know what they're doing, and they pursued very noble causes. But I was equally impressed, if not more so, with the losers. I thought the AG office did with what they had to work with. I think they did a marvelous job. But they lost, at least so far. But that could be reversed. I doubt it. I think there's some chance of that. But I think the appeal could buy the time the department needs to do the job in a different way. Who knows?
Thank you.
I'll keep you posted. Next board meeting, I may have a lot more to say.
Very good.
I'm still reading it. I've read it a couple of times, and those are just my initial reactions.
But we have a plan.
Now, I'm sorry, I'll shut up and let Kurt tell you what the plan
Okay,
is.
so I'm going to turn it over to Kurt, who's not going to tell us the plan yet, I'm sure, but we have one.
Well, I've tried to get information from State Water Resource Control Board on what the state is going to do. Obviously, it just occurred on May 5th. The state's position is we need time to look at the ruling. In my reading of the ruling, the judge was very clear that he was not saying that 10 MCL could not be the MCL level, that there needs to be an economic feasibility analysis done. And in the meantime, new technologies seem to perhaps maybe possibly work, and that's stannous chloride, in certain areas that have the right water quality. So at the same time that we have to wait to design our projects to a new MCL, we're also, at least right now, because State Water Resource Control Board Division of Finance has not received any guidance, we still need to be moving forward with some sort of engineering design so that we can get in line for construction grants to meet the January 2020 deadline. I hope that that deadline will be moved forward because it's very difficult to take state grant monies and spend it on an engineering plan to develop treatment methodologies for an unknown MCL. But I think the public should not think, oh, it's going to be higher than 10. In the ruling, the judge said it has to be someplace between 2 parts per billion and 50. And that's up to the state to decide what's economically feasible, especially for small water districts, but for all of the ratepayers. So we've been told maybe a week or two, and the state will have some guidance on where they're going. We've had discussions with Coachella Valley Water District today, and they've actually discovered a technology with stannous chloride that appears at a bench scale that you can treat the chromium-6, convert it to chromium-3, and put it in a chlorination system that has parts per billion of 20 chromium-6. And it totally converts the chromium-6 to chromium-3, and when it's exposed to the chlorine, it reconverts some 20 to 25% back to up to 4 or 5 parts per billion after 4 days exposure, and then back down to 2 parts per billion in 10 to 15 days, which is the maximum time that water is in their system. They're going to be discussing this technology with the state. If the state decides that it's worth investigating, then they expect, they need to get approval from the board to proceed with that. At the same time, we've also found that about 20% of the chromium-3 oxidizes back to chromium-6, and we're having discussions with the Bureau of Reclamation and Dudek Engineering tomorrow, because Bureau of Reclamation has, as far as I understand it, at least second or third hand, has completed their studies on our stannous chloride media filtration, and we think that we can get below, well below 10 parts per billion of chromium-6, and we'll have more information on that. So we're going to finish up our study that we've almost completed with stannous chloride and wait for some direction from the state and then start designing. I mean, it's very interesting. If they leave it at 10, then all 5 wells still need to be treated. If the stannous chloride is effective at these levels, there could be some blending, so you don't have to treat all the water. If they move it to 20, 2 of our wells out of the 5 won't have to be treated. If they move it to 30, which who knows what they will do, then it opens up the possibility of shutting down a couple wells and drilling another, a couple of wells, and drilling another well if we can locate a place that has chromium-6 less than 30. So it's all dependent on what the MCL is going to be. But we're not going to, we're at a place where it's very easy to finish the studies that have been going on, which the Bureau of Reclamation is funding. And we are funding part of Dudek's project management and review of their data through grant monies from the state. In the past month, we've spent $11,000, and Susan just finished what will now be our monthly submission for reimbursement for $11,000. So
thank you, Susan.
That's what's going on, and we'll keep you posted on that. Well 14, or do you have any questions?
Kurt, can I comment?
Yeah.
Kurt's report, excellent as always, makes me think there's a legal observation here I want to share with you. If the technology is improving like Kurt just reported it is, and it's being proven in test, it's conceivable if the department goes back and redoes its evaluation, it could come back with something less than 10 parts. It could come back at 2. If they just, yeah, just be aware of that. We don't know, we're in limbo. We don't know where we're going with this thing. But that's going to have a much impact on what the department does or doesn't do. That's for sure. And you know, another thing the judge did, I didn't mention this and I will now, he probably is likely to have a return in the writ, which means he's going to, and this is sort of like retaining jurisdiction over the, he may be ordering, when the writ's drafted and finally approved by both councils and the judge, it may contain a return order, and then it means, come back to me, department, and tell me what you've done, and I want to look at it. I'm going to make sure you've complied with my order. It may not even be over at the trial level on that particular issue.
And just so we're clear, stannous chloride doesn't work in every system. Depends on your water quality, the makeup of your water. So it's not like stannous chloride can be used throughout the state of California to treat this. Okay. All right, so well 14 rehab is on schedule. We'll be doing a downhole video on Friday, and then we will go into the chlorination disinfection phase starting on Monday. We've completed our recharge for the year, which started on March 15th, 584 acre-feet. It's gone back into the aquifer. As we all know, and many people in the audience were also here, Victoria's Celebration of Life was yesterday. It was a sad, somber, and celebratory, happy event all at once. Some 10 people from 10 different organizations from which she was associated spoke on her commitments to their organizations. It was attended by about 60 people from 4 to 6:30 p.m., which actually turned out to be 7:30 p.m. And I want to thank Kathleen, and I want to thank Beverly for the behind-the-scenes organization and logistics that made this event go off without a hitch. They even prevented the wind from blowing until 6:35. That's the general manager's report.
Excellent. Future director meetings and training opportunities, the ASB-CSD, Association of San Bernardino County Special Districts. Dinner is next Monday at the Roost. It's being hosted by High Desert Water District, and General Manager Sauer and I and Director Hunt and Director Unger will all attend that.
Bob, aren't you going?
The Mojave Water Agency Board of Directors meeting, next one is on May 25th at 4:30, and that's Director Hunt. And Mojave Water Agency Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, meets June 1st at 10 a.m., and that's me. So I will go into that.
Madam President, I have a comment. It's not a near future director's meeting or training opportunity or whatever, but we've received word from Mojave Water Agency that June 22nd's board meeting is currently scheduled to recognize General Manager Kirby Brill's contributions. So I think that Rebecca is scheduled for that one, but other board members may want to go with she and I, and we'll present that resolution at that time and give him the key to the district.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, director reports on meetings attended, comments, future agenda items. We'll start at, Got anything, Tom, you want to say before?
My pockets are inside out.
Director Hunt?
No, nothing to add, other than to say once again how much I appreciate all the folks that applied for the position, and how impressed I was with each and every one of them.
Excellent. Director Johnson?
I want to ditto that and just say we'll keep driving on, and tomorrow's another day, and congratulations, Tom.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And I too want to thank everyone who came out and applied to fill Victoria's seat on the dais. And when I worked on the newspaper, I loved this kind of stuff. It was so exciting, and watching people have to really sweat. And when you're sitting up on the board, it's so hard. It is so hard. And thank everybody. I know some people kind of come out 2018 with sharpening their knives for me, so that's fine. That's okay. We'll do it. And welcome, Tom.
Yeah.
Welcome to the board. And I would urge you to come to the Roost with us on Monday.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for assignments. I've got my feet in the blocks, I'm ready to go.
And thank you, Kathleen and Beverly, for a fantastic, beautiful, wonderful event
Yes.
yesterday.
Yeah.
It was a real opportunity. Like Kurt says, yeah, it was sad. It was people missed Victoria, but everyone had so many wonderful things to say. The plaque is beautiful. We've got the plant that she harvested, and it was wonderful. Thank you so much for doing that. It was absolutely beautiful.
It was a beautiful event.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly add about the speakers and about the crowd. I was incredibly impressed by what people had to say about Victoria, and I know all of us would echo the comments that we heard, but there were some very poignant and moving speeches about Victoria. And
She will be sorely missed, although we have Tom now, but we
Right.
will still miss Victoria because she was
She's unmatched.
one in a million.
She's
Yes.
unmatched.
Very, very dear,
We'll never have anyone
wonderful,
like her.
sweet person with a great sense of humor.
Yep. So do I have a motion for adjournment?
Bob,
So moved.
second?
All right.